What's happening, team? Hope this finds everybody well. Welcome back to the Built for Pressure podcast with me, Will Foden. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into a subject that I know a lot of ex-athletes and entrepreneurial people feel and deal with on a regular basis. It's actually, what if you knew there was a current thing in your side of your process that was no longer serving you? This is quite a big, deep question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk around my experiences, not only through rugby, but throughout my professional career. And those that I've worked with a key insight into one of my current clients who this actually happened with. Okay, so most executives, CEOs, those that are driven and wired to achieve, they actually seek control. Now, control for me is actually impossible. Control is actually a never-ending outcome because you can't actually have control of anything. You can only take charge of certain positions. And the reality is that what you want is better. You don't necessarily want to have control of the situation. You want to know that you have the capacity to deal with that situation, whether it's growing a business, whether it's getting back into shape and actually competing at a high level in your sport or in your recreation, or more to the point in times of challenge and change, you know that you're an asset. And something that I really have learned over the years of doing this is actually you just want more focus. You want faster decisions. You want a faster execution speed. And actually you want to have seamless transitions from push and pull when it comes down to your performance. What we're going to do today is talk around that and how that actually you can alleviate. And at the end, I'm going to give you 3 key questions that you can actually utilize after this to question whether you're making the right decision of what you're trying to achieve heading into March and beyond. So something that happened with me inside of my rugby process, and again, if you guys are on LinkedIn, you would have seen a photo of me playing for Wanderers. Shout out to the boys, one mob. There was an actual point inside of my process where I realized that rugby was no longer for me. And it wasn't a case I didn't love rugby. It wasn't a case that I didn't like the people. It was just that I knew I was getting towards kickoff and I lost that feeling of excitement, that feeling of electricity that I told my dad when I was very young. That actually, those that don't know my story, I played high level tennis. I was on road to Wimbledon when I was 14. And I absolutely whooped by this kid. And I went back home and I said to my dad, rugby makes you feel alive. Fast forward to Singapore, and I was kicking off against Bedok at home, and I just didn't have that feeling anymore. I thought I'm just playing this because this is a gateway for me to be in a different country, for me to do some cool, to be alongside some amazing people. But something was off. I just didn't know why, and I kept trying to rekindle that, push harder, fight harder, put new meaning around my performance, and thinking I was putting intent towards it. But the reality was that I had changed, I had shifted, and that I was actually becoming something different. I was evolving as a man. I was evolving as a professional. I was evolving as an athlete. And actually, at that point, my current process was geared up. My whole identity was around me being a rugby player. Whether it was how I trained, whether it was how I ate, whether it was how I saw myself, whatever conversations I was in, how I actually operated on a real world basis. Nearly lost my words there. But the reality is that I already knew. I already knew that I was on the descent. I already knew that I was trying to make a transition. I already knew that I was trying to climb a different tree. And reality is, if you're looking for growth, you've got your hands on 2 trees. The one that built you and the one that you're trying to get to. You have to let go of the one that built you to get to that next level. And it actually took me getting blindsided in the morning, having my rib popped out of my chest to realize that rugby was no longer for me. The meaning behind it was no more. I used to be wanting to play for England, and realistically, that wasn't going to happen. I'd done what I needed to do. I'd come back from life-threatening injury, played rugby again. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, ready to rock and roll. Whereas actually, this is the key, that thing that happens inside professional processes. Old behaviours that got you here aren't going to serve you long term. You're growing a business and you're a CEO of a small company. You're going to want to actually push yourself to that next limit. You want to actually see that level of change. You want to actually you want to be in the firefight on a continual basis. But what most people don't talk about is what happens when you get there. That's the difference. Most of media at the moment is around building stuff. It's around building more systems, more strategy, more this, more that, more everything. But if you're listening to this, you're already an operator. You're already disciplined. You're already determined. You've already got grit. You're already tough. You've already got the battle wounds and the scars to prove it. Whereas actually what we're trying to elicit here is understanding what lever to pull to have a cascade effect across your whole performance, mind, body, and your business. And this is something that most professionals gauge their success off just those words. Discipline, resilience, determination. Whilst their body's crumbling, they've got niggly injuries, they're sore, their decision-making is average because their mind's cloudy and they just can't seem to find a way of balancing their health, energy, and performance with their ambition. So I'll tell you a little story about one of my customers, Rasesh. CEO of an international firm, flying across multiple countries on a weekly basis, from Singapore to India to Indonesia, across the board. Young family, extremely busy. Weekly flights, rapid scaling business, and actually he's dealing with a global team at the moment. On paper, that's actually moving the needle. On paper, he's actually pushing it and he's attacking. But when he first came inside Built for Pressure, the main thing that happened that we couldn't actually hold on to was actually sustaining that when business was turbulent. He went from within 12 weeks having no energy, no gas, feeling fatigued, having zero structure, and more so just guessing on what to actually do on a regular basis. Hence why he had niggles and injuries, and he actually didn't want to train that hard, compared to more energy, more focus, and actually a clear picture on what to do and when. Inside Built for Pressure, we use a protocol, a home and away protocol. If you are an executive, an ex-athlete, you will understand there's a very big difference between being at home and being away. And we use that same framework inside of your process to not only for you to actually gauge and physiologically put yourself in the right position, but biologically put you in the right position too. Because again, that's the name of the game. Most executives don't measure their physical output in relation to what their metrics are doing. We're in a very weird time at the moment. When it comes down to, we've got more data than ever, more insights than ever, more information than ever, but not many people actually understand what that means. An example, I get people send me all the time, their HRV's crumbling, but yet they haven't got the association of what allostoic load is. They don't understand what environmental stress is. They don't understand sleep architecture, mechanics. They don't understand what the nutrition is doing to the HRV. They don't understand the situations. I've got a customer of mine who is going in for a huge board meeting, and his metrics were crumbling on a daily basis a week out. That's expected. Central nervous system is trying to gear him up to actually perform at his very best, because I knew exactly how much that was worth, and it was worth a huge amount to his company. My point being, do you actually understand what your metrics are doing? In Rasesh's case, it was very much a case of getting him back on board, getting him back to not only just basics, but actually how to implement those on the move and what actually matters. Too many executives have fluff within inside their process. They're frustrated, they're pissed off, they're annoyed that they feel that they're being underproductive and they're not being effective. But the reality is they don't actually know what effective means. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. I want you to take these, I want you to write them out, and I want you to actually make sure that you pause this podcast. But if you are driving, please don't do it whilst you drive. And actually be honest with yourself here, because again, this is something that really, really happens. Is if you're looking at it from an NLP standpoint, those that have asked me about around, well, what realm I work in, worked in S&C for a very, very long period of time, and then got through the mental performance game through NLP. And actually, you'll delete, generalize, and distort what's in front of you. And what we're going to do is make sure we've got some objective feedback for you to run off with, take, utilize, and make sure you can execute in the month of March. So actually, these are the 3 questions. What markers of success are actually moving the needle and pushing you in the right direction? From a physiological standpoint, those are metrics, whether it's weight, whether it's body fat, whether it's strength numbers, whether it's HRV, whether it's sleep mechanics, whether it's energy, whether it's just actually you being happy with inside of your process and seeing things moving forward. But those have to be objective measures. I think a lot of people talk around focus. And like when do you actually feel focused? It's when time stops, and you can talk about flow state and that kind of stuff. Well, actually, the reality is focus has an outcome. It has an output. It has an end product. What does focus actually mean for you? If you work by yourself, I guarantee that 80% of your effort will create 20% of your results. And flipping it, 20% of your effort will create 80% of your results. How many of us procrastinate over our own bullshit to do stuff? That's the thing that frustrates most people. Is what they do is they're putting effort into things that don't move the needle. If you don't know what moves the needle from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, or from a business growth standpoint, you are going to struggle, because that's where the key indicator of this is happiness and impact. I've something that I've learned over the last couple of weeks through Tom Foxley. Shout out to him. Is this actually leads into your second question? Is what's your gut telling you? I'd been in a big position for a long period of time where business was evolving, growing, and I was pushing into ventures that I absolutely love. Some weird part of me was thinking, is this the right direction? Only on the basis that I actually thrive and love challenge. I love pushing myself. I love actually being in the hurt locker. I think a lot of people who are wired like me want hard work. I want to feel like I've pushed myself. I don't want to sit on a beach in Bali for 3 hours a day and then talk about pina coladas. I want to do deep work with impact that makes impact across many different plethoras of people who I believe in, and show them how to create more output without them burning themselves alive. That's what I love doing, and it's just part of who I am. Some big decisions inside the company in regards to what I'm trying to do and what we're pushing forward. And also shout out to the guys and ladies in Dubai. I'll be seeing you on Saturday. I had some big decisions of what direction to take my company in, which actually meant it was going to mean a new overhaul, a version 2 of what Built for Pressure is building to the party when it comes down to more executive performance and human optimization. Not that I didn't know what to do. I hadn't given myself permission to pull the trigger and do it on my terms. Being very openly honest, when you've built something, it'll take you a bit of time because you don't know what you don't know. And what you're doing is you'll measure your success against something else. But you'll know that this is a prime example of knowing, this is why I'm doing this podcast, is that how do you know if your current process is no longer serving you? Regardless of what actions I was taking, regardless of what growth I was having, whether it was money, impact, whatever it was, I still had this gut feeling. And with Tom, we ran this simple exercise that I found was really beneficial. I looked over the last 10 years of my performance and I measured 2 things. When I had a gut instinct like this, what happened? And usually it came off. Whether it was moving to Singapore, whether it was starting fully online, whether it was doing my first in-person workshop, whether it insert whatever it was, I took a gut instinct. I didn't need to be certain about. I just knew deep down that I'd make it happen. It usually came off. But when I started to overanalyze, when I started to put my process into a scientific principle, when I started to measure my brain across it all the time, what usually happened was frustration, overwhelm, or actually I slowed the bus down, or I went in the wrong direction. I've done that many a time. Just to be clear, if you're a coach listening to this, don't you not worry. Everyone will tell you all the strategies everywhere, but not all things are made equal. I've done so many different types of pieces inside of my business that I now know exactly what I want to do and what I don't. But actually, this gut feeling had been telling me for a while. And after that conversation, I pulled the trigger. I've gone straight into the deep end, committed financially, emotionally, professionally to my next evolution, my next progression, what I'm going to be inside the industry, who I'm going to become, who I am becoming. It's not who I am becoming. I'm already that person. I need to express it more. But that's the name of the game, is I took that gut instinct. So what I want you to do is whatever gut feeling you've had across your business, that whatever challenge you're bumping up against, or the thing that you're finding is not serving you, I want you to write down the last time you had that gut feeling and you took action, what happened? Most likely you made it happen. You made it fit. Most likely you did the thing and it was ugly, it was minging, but you got through it. Whatever it was, trust me, it's a game changer. And then lastly, answer this question. If you know there's something that's no longer serving you inside your process, your gut feeling is telling you that it's no longer serving you. My question is, how can you get results with speed? For me, I am a firm believer of reinvesting in myself. I'm a firm believer. It's one of my biggest values is learning. I love education. I love to actually educate myself to try and master myself, which is an oxymoron. You can never master yourself. But actually, how can you get those results with speed? And that is finding people who you resonate with, people who you know have got the result that you're asking for, and actually paying them for their time, paying them for their consultancy, paying them for their help. Going to the workshop, doing the thing, actually investing time and energy into something because you know deep down that they've done what you've said you were going to do. Now, the only caveat with that, if you're listening to this, and I know a lot of executives get very frustrated, is your version of speed is that you give them the money, you get the result. That's not the way of doing things. When it comes down to growth, when it comes down to your next evolution, mind, body, or business, doesn't matter what it is, the currency is effort. The currency is putting energy and intent into it. The currency is finding meaning inside of that process so it becomes automated. So you just do the fucking thing on a daily basis instead of dithering around and finding new ways of trying to reinvent the wheel. It's very, very easy for you to think speed is based off somebody else's platform. But like, this is why we've done it this way around, is what I want you to do is reflect on what part of your process is not reaping the reward. So those 3 questions. What are the markers of success? How are you measuring them? And which one is going in the right directions and which ones aren't? What's your gut feeling telling you? Put your story to it and see whether that gut feeling served you in the past. And if it has, move with it. If it hasn't, question it. And lastly, how can you get to that destination with speed? Finding the person, investigating it, being active in the process, and then actually committing. What's his name? With green lights. Matthew McConaughey. He says, when you make a decision, you dive. Deep dive, go and attack it. That's what I've done personally. I've gone, right, they're cool. It's not about being all in. It's about I'm committed. That's the difference. So anyway, I digress. I hope that was helpful. A little bit of an insight into what's currently happening with me, a legend of a client of mine, and also how you can actually be more effective and stop doing aimless things that aren't going to serve your purpose. But anyway, I digress. Have an awesome week. Those in Dubai, I'll be seeing you there. And then next week, give you an oversight of how that goes. And I'll catch you guys soon.